Tuli, Entrepreneurship Week?
In Global Entrepreneurship Week, it's celebrated right around the world, and I think it's important for emerging countries like ourselves to focus on entrepreneurship. Big companies can only employ so many people. We need the small businesses. We need people to become entrepreneurs, to start their businesses, to ensure that we increase the number of companies that are able to employ people. I mean, employment still remains a big problem in our country, and the more entrepreneurs we can groom and develop in South Africa, the more jobs that we can create. And it's certainly not the government's job. I think it's all of us sitting in this room that need to do something. And I'm glad we have two individuals who have done that and are employing people. So it's going to be interesting hearing from Nonku and Billy in terms of the changing face of entrepreneurship, and also a very important subject of how to bounce back. And I think it's one quality that you need to have as an entrepreneur. Things don't always go well, and you need to have the ability to bounce back.
All right, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to introduce Nonku and Shona, and Associates. Quantity Surveyors, Pty Limited, is a medium-sized black woman-owned company, surveying company based in Joburg. Founded by Nonku, the company brings to bear her in-depth knowledge of the property development and construction industry and a broad range of skills gained from more than 10 years' experience working on prominent projects, Eastgate, Old Mutual Group, Free State Development, roads, works, everything. And Nonku, good afternoon, welcome.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me here.
All right, our next man is Billy Selikani. Needs a very little introduction. Billy's done it all. Author, speaker, motivational speaker, organizational effectiveness specialist, and Billy is a businessman as well. Good afternoon to you, Billy.
Hey, afternoon, Stephen. Afternoon to your listeners, and afternoon to the audience here.
Fantastic. The theme of our talk this afternoon, let's start with Nonku. The changing face of entrepreneurship. And I suppose one of them would be women becoming entrepreneurs, people like you.
Yes, we actually had a discussion just now with Billy. He asked me about what I do, and I told him I'm a quantity surveyor. And for me, I think I look at myself more of a professional rather than an entrepreneur. And he says, well, I'm sure there's very little of you around. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, in your industry and being black, I guess it's something that, yes, we definitely need to acknowledge. It's definitely changing. When I started the practice 8 years ago, in an AQS, I think there were very few black female-owned companies in our space. And at the moment, we have a few that are upcoming. And yes, it is changing. There is still the old boys club, but it's definitely changing.
And how do you handle that? I mean, when you started 8 years ago, as you said, there were very few black women-owned quantity surveyors companies, and you've tackled some really big projects. I mean, how did you go in there, pitch for those contracts and convince people that you're going to be able to deliver on them?
I think more than anything else, to be able to be good in anything that you do, you need to research and actually really understand the subject matter. So it was about equipping myself, ensuring that I understand what I'm venturing into. When I started, I worked for a company called Turner & Townsend, and at the time it was an international company, and I had an opportunity to be able to work on an engineering environment as well as a commercial environment. So when I started in an AQS, I looked at what was happening around me, and I thought I will actually just focus on commercial and really focus on the private sector. And it was really about making sure that you're well networked. So I used to, go and attend various functions, making sure that I also equip myself with relationships of people that are actually close to my space as well, and actually learning about what they were doing, and actually also learning about the competitors in the market, who was there and what were they doing, and how can I actually make myself different from who was there at that time. And one of the things that we did was to ensure that we are ISO accredited. We were one of the few black-owned companies that were ISO accredited, ensuring that when we go out there and we market ourselves, we're going to say, we can actually give you a service that's the same with everyone else, but because we've got procedures and processes, we will ensure that we give you a quality service.
All right, we're going to get to, let me just tell you, this is Stevie B on BizKai from 95.9. Coming to you live from the Henley Business School. We've had some great functions here before, and of course, Nedbank are here as well as always. Great to have them aboard. Now, Billy Selikani, we introduced him a little bit earlier. Billy, the first experience of running a business exploded in your face due to an event that you could not really have foreseen.
Yeah, it was back in the days, Stevie, when I had a vision with a few friends of mine, because what we recognized that there was a gap between black-owned businesses and white-owned businesses. So what we did, we took the model of the range show and scaled it down and said we're going to create an opportunity where white businesses come to the township and they mix with their black counterparts and there's a skills transfer. Now, this was a plan that we had worked through for the whole year to have this Renister show kind of event, which was going to run for 15 days. But unfortunately, the evening before the show was launched, 12 people were massacred in Tembisa.
Wow.
And that just, sank our hearts.
Wow.
And then everybody said, at that time...
They're not going to the township.
Yeah, and everybody came to us and said, you can't do this show. These guys are going to come tomorrow and do the same thing. So our opening day, we're expecting about 15,000 people. If there were 80 people on that first day, it was like... So it was really, really a massive kind of a blow. But the fascinating thing is, it was something that we never even imagined could happen.
Yes.
It was just, it's like what happened in Paris. People go out, have fun.
Exactly.
And something catastrophic, unplanned for, just happens and turns the tide around.
Yes.
And that was the most devastating first business failure I've ever had. Had a couple of them already, but that was really big.
Bill, what did you take away from that experience? Because you can't always plan for everything. You can't foresee every event as a business person, but you need to be able to recover.
I think one of the things that a lot of young, upcoming business people don't do, they don't do enough risk assessment. So we didn't do our risk assessment. We didn't have a risk plan. We did not have a mitigation plan. What if things that, some people have events. What if it rains or there's a hailstorm? And people have bought tickets. If you don't have a powerful risk management process, you're going to go bankrupt because people are going to demand their money back. So I think a lot of small businesses, we're driven by enthusiasm and passion, but we forget procedures. And I like it when she says she's ISO certified. You have to have clear processes in your business. That will be a buffer when things that happen will interfere with your business, which are beyond your control. So it's about risk, analysis, risk planning, and mitigation. It's very important.
Okay. And also just wanted to pose this question to you. You've been in business for a long time. Yeah. So what have you seen as some of the changes? We're looking at the changing face of business. What are you seeing in this entrepreneurship space? How is it changing?
Well, one of the most fascinating things, and I feel South Africans don't really get to that bandwagon as quick as possible, is disruption models. Every business has been disrupted in the way that it operated. I'll give an example. There's a company called Uber. They don't even own a spare wheel. And yet it's an 80, over 800 million worth of a business. There's an Airbnb, which does not even own a bed. And yet their market capitalization is 10.8 billion, and the Hyatt Group's market capitalization is 8.4 billion. Yeah. So we've got to look at markets that can be disrupted and disrupt them quickly, because if you don't, your own business will be disrupted by somebody who thinks much more smarter than you do.
I wanted to come to our guests now. A question I wanted to pick up on. Billy, you mentioned the importance of disruption, but I'll pose the question to Nonku. In your industry, what are some of the trends that you are seeing that can possibly disrupt, the whole QS profession as it is now?
Well, it's obviously construction companies or developers actually deciding that rather do that service in-house. That's one of the disruptions which we are constantly fighting. And also one of them is probably the professional fees. We have to be constantly be thinking about how do we actually put our fees in such a way that they're very competitive and you are able to to compete against the other person and actually win it. And it's fee scales. So it's engineers as well as architects and so forth. So you find that we're now all competing against each other because you want to increase your fees before the other one increases their fees, because you find that project managers, for example, are not usually necessary on all projects, but you may find that they think they're actually necessary because QSs can actually do the same as engineers. So you find that we at a position where we are not able to actually increase our fees because someone else is actually going to complain before. So you always need to be innovative and evolving with times as we go along.
Okay. And Billy, you're the man who's looking at sectors that you could possibly disrupt. Any sector, without giving away some of your intel and your competitive advantage, but what are some of the industries that are ready and ripe for disruption in South Africa?
Well, I think if you look at my industry, specifically speaking, coaching and mentoring, it is ready to be taken, and some people are beginning to take it because what we've seen the free availability of internet. Pretoria has got free wireless. Johannesburg is picking it up. So what it means your normal guy in the street can have access to YouTube and be able to search and find content that they would otherwise have paid me to listen to. So our industry is in for the taking, but I'm launching something that is disrupting me next year, April, to foresee further disruption. So each and every business, if you look at banking, for argument's sake, there's this new thing called cryptocurrency. The number one cryptocurrency in the world is Bitcoins. People still don't understand how Bitcoins work, but it has become a massive, massive industry. There's one of the biggest companies in Hong Kong, which is called BitNock, that does Bitcoin farming. And so if you look at, for argument's sake, if you look at Pep used to be a clothing store. Then it became a cell phone provider. Now it's a bank. So it's fascinating. Now, if you go back into township entrepreneurs and businesses, you ask yourself this one question. A guy who's got a shisanyama on the side of the road, who is going to disrupt him? And I believe that the person that is going to disrupt him is somebody that can come with service that is bespoke, which means instead of just doing generic chisanyama, you can go online, order your meat, tell me how you want it, medium, rare, or whatever. Where should I deliver it? At what time should I deliver it? And if somebody does that, no longer will people go to your place, but the place will come to people. So a lot of industries, especially if you look at the township economy, because the township economy is still undefined. We've got businesses that are not documented, but that are really turning over chunks and chunks of money, but they still have not structured themselves. There lies opportunities for disruption, and it's going to happen everywhere. So if you're in business now, if you're not willing to disrupt yourself, when somebody else does, you'll literally be out of business.
Billy, you've been doing this for a long time, and you've mentored a lot of people. If we look like young people like, goodness me, Pegna Motivator that you had under your wing all those years ago, you mentored him, and he's become quite a big success. Do you mentor a lot of people? And is mentorship important in entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I'm gonna answer your question in two ways: mentorship and coaching, because those are two different things. Mentoring is you go to somebody who's wise, who has walked the path. They share with you few tips on how to get there.
Right.
Coaching is a defined and clearly defined process of, say, your business is here. I want to shift it to this process, but this is how you want to do, and it's a commitment thing. You pay me to do that. Mentorship, it's a mutual relationship that is built by usually the protege, who's the person that needs mentoring, chooses a mentor because they walk in the same path. And coaching is you find a professional coach, like what I do with a lot of businesses. I think that a lot of small businesses will stay small for a very long time because small business people are not willing to invest in themselves. They're not willing to pay money to grow and to learn from somebody else that has done better than they have done. And I think that's the shortfall. And I'll give you an example. If you look at countries like Singapore, in Singapore, they'll tell you that an average Singaporean, not an entrepreneur in Singapore, an average Singaporean spends between 2.5 to 3 hours per day on their own personal development. Not what the company pays for.
That's amazing.
Their own personal development. So, and you can see Singapore has got nothing. It just has got human beings. But they've spent so much money investing in the human capital such that they are one of the top countries as far as IP is concerned. And I think in South Africa, we've got to get to that level where people understand that for you to grow a business to the next level, you've got to find somebody who can coach you and teach you new ways of getting your business to the next level. Otherwise, you'll be stuck. And unfortunately, if you get stuck, guess what happened? Eventually, your business dies.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Excellent. Great views there and good advice. I tell you what, we're going to say, give Nonku the last word.
I think I agree with Billy. At the same time, I also disagree.
Okay, go ahead.
I think we have challenges, which usually you start your business, someone will obviously give you a break, and someone will also support you. And then you get to a stage where you now need to grow it to another level. But usually it's the finances that are not there. You're not able to actually move to the next level. So how are you actually going to then be able to invest in yourself when you can't even, take the business from that stage to the next level? Because when you're taking it to the next level, you need to pay, huge salaries, because now you need people with proper experts in certain things, because you've now followed a certain strategy that you want to go into mining. So you need to employ someone who actually has that expertise. So you need to pay them more money. So it's a catch-22 situation where, yes, you need to invest in yourself, but most of the time with the small businesses is the means on how to actually get there. And I think that's where the government actually needs to come in to assist, not just start, but actually how do we get the businesses from a level where they're probably 5 years now growing into medium size to large size.
Okay, just question I want to post. I mean, I think there's a bit of both there. You need to be in a place where you can determine what your company needs to grow. Sometimes it could be financial, sometimes it could be non-financial. And coming to you, Billy, I mean, you are passionate about township entrepreneurship and growing the township entrepreneurs. And you do find some of those businesses, Nonku, that have been running for X number of years. People have grown their brand, they're known in the township, but they just find themselves stuck and not be able to get to the next level. I mean, what type of interventions should be done? I mean, there have been some by government, but they seem to be failing. So, Billy, I don't know, what do you see as the solution to that?
Well, I think I usually laugh when people say government must do this, government must do. Government does not know what to do. And how can they come and help you if they can't help themselves? I'm just very sorry, guys. That's just the truth. However, one of the frustrations that I have with a lot of government interventions, they are run by the wrong people. Somebody who's the head of SMME, blah, 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 has never been sold 2 chappies to anybody. How will they understand the kind of pain that you go through in building a business? We've got a lot of great businesses in the township. All we need to do is to structure them properly and use the same people who have started those businesses to run the initiatives that will help entrepreneurs. You can't take an academic guy who's got an MBA or an honors degree or whatever, but has never started a business and have done all this theory, and then they're going to help you run your business better. I'm yet to see that. It's never going to happen. So we have to change the way we do things. We have to say, can we identify local entrepreneurs, structure them a little bit, go with businesses like Henley School of Business, create a partnership and say, how can we fast track these guys to understand how to read their financial statement, how to set up a business plan, and take the same caliber of guys back into the same township, and they do peer-to-peer mentoring and peer-to-peer coaching. That's what we need to do. And coming back to you, madam, I think one of the things that makes people not be able to invest in their own businesses is because their businesses are not structured. Every business has a budget for learning and development. And if your business does not have it, you're going to die. It's as simple as that. And I think it goes back to the fact that if you make 100 Rand, where does your 100 Rand goes? What percentage of it goes to your own personal development? What percentage goes to branding? What percentage goes to infrastructure, growth? You've got to be able to structure your business in such a way that it has a 50-year view, not a 5-year view. Unfortunately, South Africans were 5-year people. Or next year people. Next year we're going to do this. Or we're 5 years. The new government is coming in. 5 years, we're excited. New vision. It dies. We wait for another 5 years. Chinese have 100-year plans. Why can't we do the same thing with our businesses? And one of the things that I want to say is
yes, go ahead.
The government must put a moratorium on allowing big businesses to build malls around townships. Because those malls are destroying township businesses. And none of the township people own even a share in those malls.
Like the founders of Starbucks, are passionate people who don't understand numbers very well. Unfortunately, you need to be able to do both. We were passionate, but we paid attention to the numbers. most of the time. And the process of doing, especially forecasting, figuring out how your company is going to look in a month or 6 months or a year, financial forecasting is the secret to successful entrepreneurship. It's definitely a best practice. And how do you do it? Just briefly, you do it in spreadsheets like this. Many people think it's just a recording of what used to happen last week and the month before. They can also be used for forecasting. There are people who say, I'm just not a numbers person. But for them, we have today the great salvation, the dashboard, which turns those sheets of numbers into pretty pictures, which express relationships, ratios of performance inside your company. It's fabulous. It's inexpensive software.
All right, having passion and understanding, the number is the key to be a successful entrepreneur. Zev Siegel, entrepreneur and co-founder of Starbucks, shared many best practice insights at the Old Mutual Corporate Wisdom Forum recently. The theme was cultivating the next class of entrepreneurs. For more info, go to oldmutual.co.za/wisdom forum. Okay, that's it. Thought there'd be a noise, but there isn't.
Yeah.
Do you want to introduce the guests, Tuli?
Okay, we've got our guest from Nedbank joining us right now. We have Namara Reddy, who is the Senior Enterprise Development Officer or Manager at Nedbank, and we also have Ellen Shannon, who is the Head of Relationship Banking and Sales at Nedbank, and we're going to be exploring enterprise development and funding. And I'm glad that government as well has finally seen the light that to have sustainable BEE, you need to develop new enterprises. We can't just be doing deals at an ownership or equity level. So, Namara, starting with you, what are you excited about when it comes to enterprise development?
I think enterprise development certainly is key enabler. If you look at the National Development Plan objective of 11 million jobs, I think this is really one of the critical platforms within which it's going to enable SMEs to have the support around working towards that figure. Enterprise development has always been about providing support, development, training, mentorship in conjunction with access to markets. So I think what's exciting about enterprise development is that if you look at an SME that's running on its own, not within the auspices of some sort of support and development, the business owner has got to it's a trial and error approach. There is an element of support by basically when he or she has time to go and source. But within the enterprise development arena, you actually have at your disposal the opportunity of mentors, specialists, experts, as well as the opportunity for market access. So what this actually does is it offers the entrepreneur the platform to consider new growth strategies, to consider diversification of products and services, all within the secure platform of having the experts that you can fall back on. So you're doing it where you can run it by someone who's already learned and made the mistake, had the failure, so you can actually run it by those individuals and say, this is what I'm considering. And if you look at the access to market as well, you also have the support of the corporates, because in the enterprise development arena, the corporates literally have to be actively involved in supporting the SME. So I think all in all, it's a lot of opportunity. The onus is on the entrepreneurs, the business owners, to really take advantage of this fantastic platform.
Ellen, coming to you, I guess people think that's the only reason banks exist, funding. And I think it's way beyond that. So just take us through, what is the philosophy of Nedbank when it comes to supporting small businesses?
Okay, so I think funding is what keeps banks alive. That's how we ultimately earn a large portion of our revenue. I think certainly from a Nedbank perspective, our approach has been sort of beyond banking. And, there's been a number of initiatives which Nedbank have been running over the years, which have been supporting that whole concept of beyond banking. We would like to see, and I know certainly if you think about Nedbank and its plans, and we're thinking 30 years hence as well, I think it's pleasing to say that, we're not taking a 1 or 3 or 5 year view to the future of South Africa. We've got a 30-year view. And so we know in order to be able to sustain as a bank, we have to be able to solve as a country the unemployment crisis that we've got. With unemployment, I'll probably be criticized for calling it a crisis, but I think at 25.5%, it's significant. And that for us to be able to grow as an institution, we need to be contributing as best we possibly can to solving some of what we see as the unemployment problem in this country. That's what will help sustain us. I mean, I think I sort of mentioned maybe something on the back of what Nirmal is saying in terms of the opportunity that enterprise development does present. I think what's certainly got me and many of my colleagues within the bank excited is that we have seen it. We've seen evidence that it can work. And I think to the point that was made by some of the previous speakers, when you collaborate with the stakeholders, whether it's corporate South Africa, whether it's government, in fact it needs to be together, you couple that with entrepreneurs that are passionate to get something started, and you provide them with the right guidance with mentors, we've actually physically seen results and seen this thing work. And I think we'd like to see a lot more of that happening, but it's going to take a very collective approach between us, corporates, governments, and small business, and the people that we need to be helping those small businesses through.
Numala, on to you. How much do you contribute towards enterprise development as a bank?
Our contribution relates to the 0.2% of our net profit after tax,
right?
Which extends to various activities. We actually participate and provide grant funding for SMEs to benefit from incubator programs, training programs, mentorship. We do not have a one-size-fits-all approach. We believe that we need to have a varied a resource of opportunities that could possibly work. And if we don't have it in-house, then we'll go and source. But it's very much about making sure that we are relevant to what our clients' needs.
Okay. Just want to pick up from what Ellen mentioned. You've seen some successes. Maybe do you want to tell us about one example?
Absolutely.
A business that's been involved with Nedbank and you've seen how they've grown and developed.
Okay. If I could push it a bit and give you two examples. So just to tell you that there's an incubator program where we've actually funded for entrepreneurs to participate in. It extends from a two-phased approach where you go in, you get access to training support, and then you evolve to a further level. You get mentorship, you get experts coming in and supporting you, as well as overlaying the bank's products and services, our teams, our people that actually can go in and add value. And I think that's when Nedbank really makes a difference to the enterprise development picture. If you look at the support, the collaborative approach around the incubator program, together with what the bank has done to augment that, I have to tell you that in a period of 12 months, we had 140 entrepreneurs create 278 jobs. So that is testament that this can work. Okay, and they are definitely growing from strength to strength. Another very good example, we had a business that, as part of Nedbank's supply development program, she has got a fantastic business growing at a phenomenal rate because the setting is right in terms of being the ideal supplier. She's growing it so exponentially that when we unpacked and we did our first business analysis, we found that actually there's a lot that needs to be done. So this will typically, I think it was mentioned earlier around the access to finance bit, and as she was operating at that stage, at the point of inception into the program, she would have struggled to get support because of the fact that she was growing and growing. So she was a marketing person. She knew that she was at the right time in terms of her product suite, and she had what was needed in the marketplace. And we basically tried to get her to understand via the business analysis process. You are growing at a phenomenal rate. However, if you look at your cost analysis, if you look at the supporting platform beneath just your marketing elements, in terms of your performance management systems, in terms of planning, as soon as she came onto the program, within a few weeks of doing this analysis and assessment, she literally turned around and said, if I hadn't come on this program, I guarantee you that in the next 6 to 12 months, my business would have fell over because all I knew is I was responding to every tender left, right, and center, and I was successful because I had what it took. But I lacked the financial acumen, I lacked the business acumen, and this is what she's now getting as part of the program. So it is very much a part of a process of understanding each business in terms of its individual needs and really trying to apply the best fit.
Ellen, on to you. I mean, financial acumen is important, and how much of a factor does it play when you are assessing an application before you actually give a loan to a business?
It plays a significant factor. In fact, just listening to the ad that was playing just prior to our session, there was a lot of emphasis around forecasting, and that in itself there's a massive emphasis on that. And I think anybody can perhaps forecast, but forecasting with a level of realism is what's important. And I think what banks perhaps are pretty well tuned into is being able to sort of interpret realistic forecasts from forecasts that perhaps are a little over ambitious. So financial acumen is huge. But that said, to the point Nirmala's been making some time ago, is that there's people out there that are prepared to help you with establishing that financial acumen. And as Nedbank, we're sort of part of that process.